Welcome back to day 110 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. Well, guys, we're getting there. Let's have a look at how how today turns out, rather. So we're currently at 1480. Let's have a look at our opponent. If we get one, which we do, we get Archon 18 from the US. 1d4, what will we face? Queen's Gambit declined. I'm kind of tempted trying to play this again, but let's go knight to f3 instead. This might have been a fun way of creating imbalance, but I'm not that familiar with those structures, so maybe not. I suspect this might be slightly unsound, although I can't quite tell. Okay, so let's have a quick look what is happening here. Might just be good. There is a lot of tension. So we either take or we don't at all. What happens here? Well, first of all, if the knight, or if the queen takes rather, we can jump out. And that might be okay. But here there is the option of takes here. Or maybe not. We might be able to go here then. In which case I think we might win material. I don't want this, we lose our center pawn, and our opponent takes with tempo. I think intuition tells me this capture is better. I don't quite know, to be honest, if we are supposed to capture at all here, but I think this makes sense. If takes here, I think we take and force an isolated pawn for our opponent. This is played, but as I mentioned here, I think we have this. Pretty sure, at least it looks like we might. This might be some kind of gambity line for black, but after this, our opponent gets forced to take, because this comes with a check on f7, and I think we might be playing up a pawn. There is this open diagonal here, but if we're checked here, I don't think it becomes an issue. Maybe this, shouldn't really matter, I think. So let's take here first. There might be some coordination here with this bishop. We'll have to see. This is also open. But now this pawn is hanging, and this here gets annoying for our opponent. Still, I don't quite know whether this is actually good for us or not. There is some stuff we have to address here. We are not quite safe, I think. Mostly because of this diagonal. Now our opponent cannot quite come here and defend, preventing us from taking, because there is this. So this being urgent means our opponent might have to play this, after which I think our most logical move might be taking the pawn, threatening to take the queen, disallowing this from being played, because, well, then we take. So let's say this is played, which it's not. This is a decent approach, I think. We have to decide between this and this. Either way, we might just end up blocking our queen. but maybe not if this is played. And if takes and takes, we still maintain this. Blocks here, takes, and well, this is no good. Here, I think I'd like to come up here and take the bishop. Potentially, at least. We get taken, but now there is no problem along this diagonal. We don't quite have access to a4 now either, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem. So our opponent here voluntarily breaks apart their pawns. Now this, I think, wins a pawn with tempo against the queen because, well, our opponent might play this, but then I think we're just happy as can be. This does not seem good. We pin ourselves and it gets awkward trying to play the position there, and I think we have to take this urgently or it could get defended, and well, we don't want to allow our opponent here to create any stuff against us. Let's have a look quickly here at this, which might be our only threat in this position. Here we come out, we block. This could be played as well. Connecting our knights. I think this simply looks good. And well, this pawn becomes annoying for our opponent, as I mentioned. The pawn here is pushed. We can't come up. This might be annoying. So if we go here, either the king has to move, which forfeits castling rights, or alternatively this knight has to come here to control this square, which might not be ideal for our opponent. Let's come here. First a subpar developing move, and then we'll try to develop quickly. Something along those lines. Maybe king to e2 even, and getting our rooks into the game. So we're playing up one pawn, and we're playing against one weak pawn on e5. Now if this is played, we might even have this, in which case our opponent still does not get the chance to castle. This, and well, this doesn't work because of another fork. So if we go here and we get targeted, we could just keep on being annoying. My intuition here is telling me this might actually be good. Why? Because I was going to say because the king does not get to castle, but I do not quite like this pressure against c1. But in this position, we might have knight to c3, preventing our opponent from getting the rook to c1, and well, the infiltration here does not seem fun to play against. So here we are kind of activating our opponent's rook. Is it good? As I mentioned, it's a bit difficult to evaluate, but our opponent does not get to castle. The king is forced in a horrible position. And I think we have the tools here to prevent our opponent from utilizing their development lead, at least to a decent degree. I'm looking at this as well, maybe forcing this, which would be probably good. The king comes up. And now we might just have the option, instead of taking this bishop, we can come back and hit this pawn, which I think becomes difficult to defend. The knight can't defend it here, this knight can't defend it, this bishop can't defend it. If it's pushed, well, it gets even more overextended, I think, and no rook can defend the pawn. As I mentioned earlier on, I was contemplating taking the bishop, but here I'm realizing this might be a better maneuver. Of course, we need to get more pieces into the game here, but there is no urgent threat. This move has to be played at some point, or well, maybe e4 is even better. If e4 is played by our opponent, I think we'll play e3. The pawn can't advance, and well, our stuff gets opened up. This knight is protected. We could just develop some sort of plan, and I think we should be quite happy. The only actual way here of defending is, well, as you can see, bringing the king up, but this has to be bad. Just from a conceptual point here, or stance here, having the king on e6 with this many pieces still in the game has to be a weakness. Now e4 might be good. Our opponent could come up here then, which would be the only way of threatening us, well, apart from b5. Could hit the pawn, maybe f3. This controls this, the king can't come up, the bishop can't come onto this diagonal and get active, and it can't easily come here either once we get f3. We want our bishop, I think, on this diagonal, so it doesn't really matter if we close down those squares here. So let's come up. Our opponent here is likely to play this maybe. It's played. Our pawn is hit, but it's not an issue. We have this move, which keeps this pawn defended indefinitely. At least I think so. I'm hoping you think so too here. Another idea here, instead of playing an immediate f3, might be just developing this knight and protecting the pawn, which I think looks like a good plan. First, we have to evaluate this move, because now it can hit us 2 times in a row, which might not be ideal. So let's have a look at this, followed by b5. Where do we go with the knight? If we go here and this pawn is pushed, once this knight gets dislodged from c3, we lose our defense of this pawn and the knight can take. So in this case, we might be forced back to d2, so we can keep our defense of f, or of e4 rather. And I think that's more defensive than we might want to be. We don't want to just fall back with all our pieces. So instead, an immediate f3 makes sense. Takes this square away from the knight. Bishop can't come here. Defends this pawn. So now this knight here gets slightly dominated. This is a threat. What are our options? Well, of course we could always come up here, but then we're inviting some annoying stuff, which is not ideal. This is, well, what our opponent did a while ago. Still, it's not ideal, but it might not be bad either. Here we can follow up with maybe this move. Get our rooks in. Do we have another way of controlling this square? This knight could drop back, but then we kind of undevelop a piece, which I'm not a fan of. This doesn't work, loses a piece. We could come here though, which is what I'm leaning towards after realizing this is in fact a move. Because this gets our knight into I think a better square. It controls this infiltration idea. And it opens up our bishop, which I think is going to be good for us. Now we can develop with tempo against the exposed king. We can kick the knight out. And I think we're probably in a good spot. We might want to prioritize playing a3 because the knight is quite strong. But this comes with a check, so we might play that first and then play a3 here. If this is played, which it is, our opponent does get superior control over d3. So let's reevaluate this. Here, the king moves, probably back. Our opponent could come in here. Is it an issue? Let's say we go here and our opponent jumps in. This pawn gets difficult to defend. So this might not be ideal. So in this position, can we do something about this? I think the answer is yes. King up here. Which might look like a stupid move to some of you, but the king I think is not endangered here. It is quite safe. This knight can't come in. And our pieces are quickly going to come into the center. So I think we'll do this, allowing us to get some quick development. And after this, we're likely to play knight to c3, clamping down on the center, maybe preparing to jump in onto d5 with a knight, this and this, and once again this becomes maybe annoying. What I'm looking at now was something like this, but it doesn't quite work. This, and our opponent has quite good control. So instead, I think we'll keep up our plan going here. This is likely to be played, in which case we might trade bishops. And Then I guess maybe come out here. I'm not entirely thrilled about this position, but it might be our best option. Alternatively, no, this doesn't work as I mentioned because this square is available. So let's come up here first. Do we have a good response here? I think we have to take coming back, and well, our pawns won't be happy. Doubled pawns here, and we might be losing our advantage. So let's evaluate this position. It's played. And surprisingly, if we get this, honestly, I don't quite see an issue here. Is this pawn a target? This knight can come here. Okay, it gets kind of annoying. It actually does get annoying. Our alternatives are what then? Is this an option? Then if takes, our opponent still gets to jump in. So I think we might just have to take here and play out this following endgame. Alternatively, here, but this, and it doesn't seem to be any better. Our opponent takes. Here, what I didn't quite like was takes, and the rook comes up again, and we're kind of back to square one. So instead, maybe coming here might be a good plan. Okay, so this is played, but this I think gives us time, which we need desperately. Now we can come out here and start trading off rooks. Maybe we'll start off like this though, or maybe not. If this is played and takes, this knight keeps this defended, so we don't have to be worried, I think. I think we can come out here. If this is defended, this is defended, this looks good. I don't see any tricks around this move. Now this square is controlled because of our rook, so the knight can't jump in and get into annoying positions. It's getting quite late for me today. The video will be coming out late. It's been a long day. Been having interviews and I've been having meetings and whatnot. But I have been looking forward to having this video come out. Or rather, playing today's game is what I meant, I guess. Okay, so what does our opponent intend to play here? This and this is a fork. Can we come out here? think we can bully the rook and maybe even win a pawn. Not quite sure, but I think our opponent has to respond here. Now takes and takes, and this is not ideal. So maybe this was bad. But well, if takes, 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 do we have threats of our own maybe? Can't quite tell. We're down to 1 minute. I think we might just come here instead. This can be played, but I don't think it's a threat in this position. But the knight has to go though. We get kicked first. We get kicked. That's fine. Let's come here. I have to play slightly quickly here because of the time situation once again. Let's come up here and centralize. C2 was an option as well. This might even be better because it defends b2. So let's come, no, we can't go there, never mind. Then d2 is, or e2 rather, is our alternative. If this is not played now, we are going to play this move. If it is played, I think we'll still play this. Yeah, this is defended. The knight jumps in here now. Do we have this? Might be forced to play it. If this is played, let's have a quick look. Don't want to invite the threats. So let's go here. 30 seconds left. This might be a slight overreaction, but I don't want any complications here. I want as easy of a transition here or of a conversion as possible. The knight comes back, intending, I guess, to jump in here. And then I think we might have this, but then g6 is not ideal for us. So let's go like this. The knight will jump in with a check. And we'll slide on over, I think. Which should be okay. If this is played, we can try to boot the knight. Our rook is well defended, and f3 is still defended as well. This works. Our rook is safe. This pawn gets targeted. Ooh, that's tricky. Trickier than I would have liked for it to be. Okay, let's sack a pawn back. I don't love it, but I don't see a good alternative. Better than losing on time. this, and this, and I think we'll just be playing with some activity here and a pawn advantage. Or not an advantage, I guess. That's not quite true there, but still I think I would evaluate the following position as good for us. Oh, this has to be good. Here, and we just win a pawn. And our opponent let us take the knight that threatened this square. So I think our opponent made a mistake here, which is great for us. This knight can't quite come in here. Could maybe centralize. Yeah, let's do it. We have the squares covered, at least the immediate squares. We're up 2 pawns. If we trade down material, we should be quite happy here. Quite happy, that's for sure. I think we can go here and threaten an infiltration here on c7. If this is played, maybe we just grab some space. Might be good. We could boot the knight in some positions, although we don't quite want to give it better jumps either. This might prevent this, but well. Oh, this is unexpected. Here, I think we'll come in this way, maybe. Yeah, we don't really have a lot of time. Let's just come with a threat while simultaneously not blundering. Oh, we didn't have checkmate in one, but now we do. This is mate in the middle of the board. We won today, 1488. Thanks for the game. Thought I had missed the mate in one, but the threat was just created on our last move here. I'm quite happy with today's game. Let's have a look at what the game review says. So we had an accuracy of 89.6 today, and our opponent had 74.8. I see we had a slight upwards trajectory here, just killing my words today, throughout the game, which I'm quite happy with, although there was some stuff here which slightly blundered our advantage. We had a couple of mistakes, 2 inaccuracies, but still we did get evaluated to a high game rating, which, as I tend to say, is quite typical for our 1d4 games. Let's start the review. This is where I got slightly confused. First of all, it was not the best move, as can be seen from the evaluation, although I don't know what this says on deeper depths. This was good, and this, as I guess kind of surmised, was a mistake, or as I guessed, because this forced us to win a pawn. Or well, it allowed us to forcibly win a pawn, rather. But this wasn't good. Should have just went up. I guess it makes sense. This is not necessary. And this 2-move maneuver here lost our advantage. Got a bit too trigger happy, thinking, oh wow, we're forcing the king to the center, our opponent can't castle, but it didn't end up meaning all that much. Here though, our opponent had this move. And well, if we go here, the pawn pushes. And we can't go here, I guess, because I was going to say because of this, but we have the bishop, so I guess this, and I guess instead of being the bullies here, we are indeed the ones getting bullied. Okay, so this was not good. We just moved our single and only developed piece. I thought it was better than it was, but the computer says otherwise. Let's have a look at this again. Yeah, should have apparently developed the piece instead. But the difference here was not massive. Apparently this is good. What happens here? Oh no, this is not a threat because the rook can move. So we're first up here, and well, it's not really that different, to be honest. This works as well. Apparently we move this rook. I never really understand the differences. For sure I thought this made sense because we defended this pawn here, but I guess maybe the computer wanted this because there is no attack here, maybe in some lines. Honestly, I can't tell, to be honest. Honestly, to be honest. I'm glad to see this was the best approach, but apparently this was bad. What I didn't like here was this, but what is the concrete follow-up? Yeah, okay, I did not see this. Allowing this, apparently, and coming back. And this is just +2. Which, well, once the moves are on the board, it's easier to say, but this seems more concrete, and I think it simplifies stuff a whole lot better. This was about equivalent with this move. For some reason, I was worried about this still, but it's not a threat because the rook can move. Our king is no longer an E1 here. So I was seeing ghosts for a couple of moves even. This was good. This was great. Here, why is this not good? Is it just because of what I didn't see the fork. Here I thought we just play with, well, activity, as I did mention, and just jump in or whatnot. And apparently that's true as well, but it's only plus 0.7, which I did say in this position. I thought it might slightly favor us. Oh, well, sorry. Although there was this more concrete approach, which I didn't see, should have probably seen. The reason I played this was because I did not see a better move and didn't want to lose on time. Thought I did see something where we might maintain winning chances at least. But this was good. And we got our checkmate. What does our opponent have to find here? Maybe this? No, it doesn't work. This move. Yeah, that's, I guess, testament to how horrible the position is when you have to sack the knight to avoid being checkmated by, well, a pawn. But well, the game concluded with pawn to f4 checkmate in the center of the board, which is a quite funny way of getting a checkmate and concluding today's game. So guys, we're up to 1488, maybe 2 games away, or maybe more. We'll have to see in the coming days. But before that, guys, I want to say thanks to our opponent today, and thanks to you for watching the video. This has been our game for today. Hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. There we go. Bye bye.